I tried many OCD recovery methods. I challenged my thoughts. I done talk therapy. I done exposure response. I sat for hours in meditation. I studied courses, and I even traveled across the world to get relief from OCD. And today I want to share with you the treatments I actually done and what I discovered from doing them, and actually what got me the long-term relief. Hi, I'm Linda Cullerton, and I have helped over 1,000 people gain long-term relief using natural, profound practices. So what treatments did I do? What were the results from them? So when I first discovered I had obsessive intrusive thoughts, I actually kept it to myself for a long time, which is something I would always advise someone to go to speak to someone. And when I felt like, okay, I can't do this on my own, I went to psychologist, and I started doing cognitive behavioral therapy. I started to understand the connection between my thoughts and my feelings, and this gave me a little bit of space in the moment. So I would actually feel a lot of relief in a session and actually after a session, because it would give me that space to understand, okay, these are not real, they're not my real thoughts, these are fear-based thoughts, and this is why I feel anxious. And it did give me some relief in the moment. But then going about my day-to-day, I would be triggered, and I'd be gone into the obsessive nature of the thought, and I'd be trying so hard to alleviate the feelings. I was feeling terrified in my body, and all that kind of cognitive awareness was really irrelevant at the time, because I was gone into this feeling of being dread and anxiety, and it was really difficult for me to understand, okay, these are my thought patterns and this is why I feel like this, and how can I challenge these thoughts. And I had various worksheets and I would do them, but again, from my personal experience, I would be really gone into that survival mode, and it was really difficult for me to think even rational, to have any perspective, and I would really be gone into the cycle of the obsessive nature again. And when I was in that, my only objective was, how do I get out of that? So I'd done CBT many times. I found it helpful in the moment. I actually found it helpful to be able to share and actually speak out these thoughts and come to some realization. But then when I would be activated again, all that rationality would literally go offline, which happens when we go into survival mode. We don't have that clear perspective, and we're gone into very much survival panic mode, and it was really hard to get back into any sort of perspective in that place. So on my journey then, I went to do other treatments for OCD. I done talk therapy. This really helped me also to be able to discuss with someone, to share how I was feeling, and actually to be vulnerable and share the thoughts I was having, the intrusive thoughts, because for me personally, I hold a lot of shame around these thoughts. So to even be able to speak to someone is a massive step, and I encourage everyone to do that, regardless of what you think about yourself due to the thoughts. That when we actually open up and speak to someone, we realize, wow, okay, this is actually not true. Because in that space, the mind can make us think that these are true and I'm a bad person and I have a lot of shame about myself. So I do encourage that. With the talk therapy, as I said, it really helped me. It opened up my space to be able to speak about this, to be able to share. And, it's really comforting to know that we have someone to go to, and we can speak what's going on for us, and we can share. And that really helps take the weight of holding all of this internally ourselves. That really helped me in my journey. Again, though, I would be brought back into definitely big states of overwhelm, of anxiety, of difficulty, feeling like I couldn't cope. So it was a constant cycle of feeling okay and then not, feeling okay and then not, and then constantly being stuck with the obsessive intrusive thoughts all day long, with the feelings of fear in my body. So still back to trying to change this internally, still back to dealing with all this anxiety internally, regardless of kind of what I'd done externally with the talk therapy. So I'd done that for a period of time. It really helped me. But again, I was looking for a way so that I actually wasn't constantly stuck with this cycle. Then I went into ERP, exposure response, and I was doing practices where I had to record the intrusive thoughts and I listened to them on loop. And the idea is to desensitize the system around that specific topic. I personally found it very, very challenging. I found it very difficult to do because my system was so anxious. I was so overwhelmed that it was overwhelming me even more. So I was becoming more overwhelmed by doing it. And it would be like a bit of a roller coaster. Sometimes it would be okay, and then others would be really, really difficult. So I found that very, very challenging. And again, this is a journey, this is a process. This wasn't just one session, this was multiple sessions. So I went to multiple therapists, multiple psychologists, because I was very determined to find a way to feel better regardless of what I had to do. So I did the exposure and I sat with that over and over and over again. But again, I just kept being stuck deeply in severe states of dread and fear within my body, and constantly the loops of the thoughts. I would get some relief short term, but then I'd come back to being stuck again in the cycle. So it kept kind of going like that, round and round and round, and not really feeling like I could make progress in one thing. I started reading a lot of books. I really got into spirituality. I started reading a lot about suffering, a lot about inner child, trauma, and it really opened up my awareness about other things that maybe I wasn't looking at, that I potentially could start looking at. So I started then going into doing yoga. I started Kundalini yoga. I started doing breath work. I done hypnosis. As I said, I traveled across the world to get relief from OCD, to yoga festival, which was really all about with working on the mind, working on the nervous system. So I was very, very determined, and I'm grateful that I was, because it led me to really looking at what I needed to do in order to get some relief, not just in the moment, but long term. And what I realized after doing all these different things is that they're all fantastic. They're all great. We need support. We need to talk about what's going on for us. That can be a major first step for someone. So I really want you to take that on board if that's where you are at the moment. And it's a journey. So it's a stepping stone towards you discovering what really feels best for you and what gets you the best relief, what gets you some relief in general. What I noticed though after doing all them treatments is that when my nervous system was literally on a default of flight, fight and freeze, all them other things really were just momentarily relief, if any, because my system, it's like having that alarm. You know, imagine we had an alarm that was switched on and we didn't know how to switch it off, but it just kept going over and over and over and over again. That's what was going on inside. So while all them things were amazing, fantastic in the moment, to take that first step to be able to share how we feel, our nervous system comes into some state of balance. We'll be constantly hijacked by them sensations inside. We'll be constantly hijacked into these emotional responses that all the cognitive understanding, all the rationale really doesn't stick, because in that moment you're really gone into survival, and in that moment you feel panic, you feel overwhelmed, it feels difficult to cope. And I get that because of where I was, but I didn't understand any of this, because you don't know what you don't know until you start going down this journey of self-discovery for yourself. Will you come to understand this? And this has been my experience. This is not to say all the treatments, this is the best. This is to say that everything is great. We need all the supports we can get. But until we get the nervous system on board with it, we are like as if we have the body here and we have the mind here, and we're just dealing with this bit up here, and we're not looking at anything down here. When we get the body on board, i.e. the nervous system, releasing this, bringing first of all a sense of calm, a sense of feeling okay in the body. Once we start bringing that on board, a sense of safety on board into the body, we can then work with both. It's actually a great thing to do together with the practice, because we're working on the mind, we're understanding our thoughts, we're having space to disengage from our thoughts, and we're getting some perspective on our thoughts when we have the body on board with it. When we don't, we have a disconnect. And that's what I've seen in my decade of journey after journey after journey, going for this type of treatment, that type of treatment. What I had noticed that was there was a disconnect. On one side here, rationally, I knew these thoughts weren't true. I knew that they were just thoughts, and that everyone thinks intrusive thoughts at some time in their life. And I knew that they were irrational, 100% knew that. But when I was stuck in the fear, this here, the fear within the body felt real. It activated an emotional response, and this feeling here in the body outweighed any rationale, any perspective, any understanding. And literally, it really is flooding the system, because our body is the unconscious, and basically when we're activated with these fear responses, it literally floods our body with these emotional responses, and they are stronger than our conscious mind. They're actually 95 to 99% stronger than what we will rationally be able to think in that moment. So what is the missing link in all these techniques? Well, the missing link is that if the nervous system is stuck in this sense of a threat survival response, the mind will always give us thoughts to reflect that. So no matter how much we try to challenge the thoughts, or even sometimes it can be really difficult to sit with them emotions because they're really flooding our body. We're going into a huge emotional overwhelm that it's really difficult to sit with. Therefore, we have to start bringing in practices to start to regulate the nervous system. Therefore, then it makes all the other therapy styles effective. Because if I am doing exposure, I'm trying to sit with my feelings, but the feelings are so big and they're really, really scary for me, I am going to have a difficult time to do that. But what about if we ease the nervous system, we start soothing the body through practice, we start bringing a sense of calm into the body over time, it's going to be much, much easier and actually nicer to be able to sit with these feelings, because it's like trying to sit with something we're terrified of, that we've been running away for so long. I like to think of it like if we had a bear in the room and I said, we're going to try to sit with the bear. We're not going to do that. We're going to survive, okay? We're going to escape at all. We're going to run. That's biologically wired into us. It's instinctual and we're just going to do it. If we started bringing a sense of calm into the body over time, not straight away, that bear won't be a bear anymore. It'll actually be small, like a bear, or a small teddy bear. It won't be as scary. It won't be that big monster that we're trying to run away from. So we don't have to put yourself in these places. There is a place for everything out there, but sometimes we have to understand that the body and the mind are intimately connected. They're like that. One influences the other. The mind influences the body, and the body influences the mind. And when we start bringing in different practices to regulate the nervous system, we're actually not only influencing the body, we're influencing our thought pattern, we're influencing our flight and fight, our amygdala. We're starting to change our emotional responses because we're changing our internal state first, not through just thinking our way through it or trying to talk our way through it, but actually doing the deeper internal work that changes this in the long term. So how do we actually change the internal system? How do we actually change the constant default system in the nervous system? How do we actually start to regulate it? And this is where we bring in breath work specific for OCD. And what this ultimately does is that it bypasses the logic, rational mind, okay? And it goes deeply into the nervous system, and it starts bringing down that amygdala, that response, that emotional response, like that fire alarm, and it starts deactivating that. Now this is not just I do it once and happy days, you know. This is done every single day until more and more as you do it, the nervous system is going to become more and more regulated. Therefore, then it helps us to think clearly. Therefore, then we can have more cognitive awareness. These are just thoughts, they don't actually mean anything about me. The reason why we, latch on to them thoughts is because of the emotional response. That is it. When that emotional response is kind of brought down somewhat, we're not going to latch on as much. And this is what the breath work really is powerful for. The breath is medicine. It's the medicine we have within us. That's why when someone comes to look for help from OCD, I empower the person with these techniques to heal themselves, because it's the breath. The breath is your own medicine. And when you learn to change the breath, you actually change your internal state. And when you do this consistently over time, this clears emotional responses. It helps you to be able to manage them feelings inside. And it starts to bring down the intrusive nature of the thoughts. What makes the thoughts intrusive, what makes them obsessive, is the emotional response. You got to understand that, because that will save you so much years of trying to figure this out with your mind. It's the emotional response that lives in your body that keeps these thoughts alive. So the emotional response needs your attention. You've got to start looking towards your emotions and starting to heal your emotions. How do I do that? How do I sit with these feelings that's really uncomfortable? We don't have to push ourselves to do something. For me, I was terrified of these feelings. So how could I go towards that feeling of terror? I literally felt terrified in my body. So when I'd done this breath work over time, day in, day out, and over time, what happened was then gently the feelings inside started to become less and less big, so they become more smaller, they were more manageable. The thoughts weren't as frequent, they weren't as intrusive. Sometimes the war would kind of go like that, because imagine when we have something that's been on alarm, that's been on for so long, it's going to flip back on again. So we have to understand that's part of the journey, that's part of the process of understanding yourself and understanding your emotions and how to heal your emotions, how to be with your emotions. As you keep doing the breath work, which I will leave a link where you can actually check out a video on that, you can actually start then being with these emotions, and it's really powerful, because the breath work actually gave me my life back through the power of the breath, through a consistent daily practice. It was amazing, because I had gone on this journey to try and find something that would give me some relief, and I didn't believe it. That was actually the breath that was with me all along. But that's the journey I had to go on to find what I'd done today. So breath work is the foundation, not any type of breath work. This specific breath work for OCD that yogic experts claim can eliminate obsessive compulsive over time. That is the foundation. You start at that. And if you'd like to learn more about the course I have, there's a link in the description below. So you start with the foundation, which is the breath work, and you build on that and build on that, and you go into trauma release practices, and then we go into emotional integration. Basically, we're bringing the balance in the body, mind and spirit together. It is a spiritual practice, as we are spiritual, so we're going to use the breath. We're going to connect deeply to ourselves. We're going to connect deeply to these emotional responses inside that actually needs our attention, care, and is very, very vulnerable and afraid. So we have to go on that journey, and it is a self-discovery. I have a video that you can look at that will help you with starting the breath practice. I'll leave it here, and that will help you start the practice today. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Most people told me that OCD was about changing my thoughts. But when I'd done that and nothing changed, and I realised it was actually the charge underneath the thoughts, everything shifted. And if you feel like you've tried so much and you're still looping with this obsessive nature, the real issue hasn't been addressed. Go and check out this video here, and I will show you why.